So I wasn't able to do last 32 predictions simply because, I had that 1 hour video I was working on by myself. I stayed up till 5 in the morning, 2 straight nights to put it together, and I still was late. But anyways, last 16 predictions. Let's just get into it, shall we? We're gonna start with Canada versus Morocco. Firstly, a little spotlight on Canada. For all the injuries they've had to deal with before and even during the tournament, Canada have proven to be fighters. Steven Eustachio has stood out to me a lot. I wasn't really surprised though. I thought he was one of Canada's best players. Ismail Kone's injury was a huge hit to Canada's team, but I would say Nathan Saliba has filled in that role pretty well. Then you got the defense, which is just, oh my god, a whole lot better than 2022. It's not even close. Not to mention you got Alphonso Davies coming off the bench in the last game. That's huge for Canada. Moises Bombito seems to also be back. The last performance, though, against South Africa wasn't the best. There's a lot of things going for Canada, including the fact that they play just really, really good sequences of attacking football. The only problem, though, is that their finishing is fucking horrible. Jonathan David is when you hear all the different Pele jokes about how he scored against the U9 Sao Paulo Children's Hospital for the Blind. But it really does seem like that way with him, because it just feels like I've never actually seen him score a goal. But you know what? Having overcome the first hump in winning a knockout game for the first time ever, I could see Canada playing a little less nervous despite them not being at home anymore. Morocco have been one of the most impressive teams in this tournament so far. They have their entire scheme laid out and they execute that to perfection, or at least so far they have. In the game against the Netherlands, they dictated most of that game and had the majority of the chances. A lot of that comes down to Morocco's midfield. It is a machine with the likes of Unahi, Bouadi, and El Anawi. And they also have players that can actually put the ball in the net. Siberia is a perfect example. He already has 3 goals in this tournament. Also, alleged rapist 4D chess man. I mean, it's kind of hard to not ignore what he's done for this Moroccan side. In defense, you've also gotten Mazraoui, who's been super impressive. Bunu in between the sticks is everything you'd expect. It's not a team that can make it all the way. I don't think it's possible. I think there's still some weaknesses in the defense here or there, but this is the dark horse of the tournament. By far, no debate. Canada, I think, slowly grow into the game, but they simply are just no match for this Moroccan side. I got Morocco winning 2-0. France versus Paraguay. If you want to talk about a team that is actually truly grown into this tournament, that would be Paraguay. From losing 4-1 to the US, then coming back and beating Turkey 1-0, and then drawing with Australia to get to the knockouts, and then after all of this, that historic triumph on penalties versus Germany. I mean, this has just been a roller coaster of emotions for Paraguayans. And this is all thanks to the professor himself, Gustavo Alfaro. He had his players freely playing that special brand of CONMEBOL handball, and it worked to absolute perfection. And what helps a lot is the fact that this team is filled with killers. And CONMEBOL killers are on a different level. In defense, Orlando Gil played so well last time out, but also give some shouts to Juan Jose Cáceres at right back. Also, you can't forget about Julio Enciso. Outside of that equalizer, he's played a key role in Paraguay's attack. But again, this team is growing into this tournament, and they're finding that fire at just the right time. Only issue is their opponents. It might be time to mention this really underground country, a team that really hasn't been mentioned that much. They kind of, were under the radar for the most part so far. France. After the first 4 games of this tournament for every team that is still in this tournament so far, I think France are the ones to beat right now. Not only did they win the group, they dominated. They scored 3+ goals in every single game, and then into the last 32, they beat Sweden by 3-0. That game wasn't even close. I quite honestly underestimated Didier Deschamps, because I was thinking this team would play super conservative just like Euro 2024. But it's genuinely anything but. This team has been ruthless. Michael Olise has been manipulating defenses like nothing with his dribbling abilities. He's also got the most assists in the tournament so far. Kylian Mbappe is quite literally on demon time right now. Something about that blue shirt, it's like a vessel to the underworld. Midfielder Aurelien Tchouameni is looking a lot more like himself. It's kind of crazy what happens when you take off the white shirt, huh? And for all the criticism Upamecano has gotten over the years, he's been really solid too. I think the only weakness with this team is the goalkeeper, Mike Maignan. That man doesn't convince me whatsoever, and I don't think he's ever going to. But either way, it's France versus Paraguay, and as much as I'd love to see Paraguay come out on top here, France is just too powerful. 3-0 to them. Brazil versus Norway next. I'm gonna be so for real, and don't get me wrong, I love my Brazilian fans so much. Honestly, like, from the bottom of my heart, it means a lot how much love you show me, and I promise one day I will come to Brazil. But this team ain't it. I will at least start with the positives though. That's the rule. I would say the Brazilian defense has been pretty decent with Marquinhos and Gabriel. Goalkeeper Alisson has looked good as well. Having Mateus Cunha up top over Igor Thiago was very much the best decision Carlo Ancelotti made going forward. And then you got the X factor, Vini Jr. And usually when he does put that yellow shirt on, it kind of looks like he's playing in one of those charity matches. But this guy is simply different when he is playing under Carlo Ancelotti. I don't know what it is about Carlo Ancelotti and just knowing every single in and out about Vini Jr., but he just knows how to use the guy. Vini has 4 goals in this tournament, and he's also been the savior for Brazil on at least 2 different occasions. But then you got the cons of Ancelotti ball, and also just problems that Brazil has had over the years. It just doesn't feel like they're a unit. And Ancelotti ball is basically just vibes. I remember watching the game versus Haiti and kind of being disappointed with how Brazil played. Like, it just didn't look that good. Like, I really can't stress how important Vini Jr. is to this team, considering it feels like the attack runs out of ideas after like 5 minutes. Listen, I'm not expecting Jogo Bonito or anything, okay? That's very unrealistic, especially during these times. But this team looks so sluggish. So dry. Especially when you have Grandpa Casemiro starting. Why? I genuinely hope to God, for the sake of the Brazilian people, that and also for the sake of Casemiro, that he doesn't start in the next game. Because my God, I don't think the country can take that again. I don't care if he scored the equalizer. It's not worth risking that again. On the other hand, we got Norway, who I can very much say have confirmed themselves as dark horses. These are frauds no longer, which is crazy to say considering what I have witnessed in the past 2 qualification campaigns before this World Cup. Now, a lot of people talk about how good Haaland is, and I'm not doubting his abilities one bit. He's a fucking animal. Everyone knows that though. I honestly feel like we gotta give more love to the entire attacking unit because it's been really solid. Martin Odegaard has 3 assists. Winger Antonio Nusa looks like a danger every single time he's on the ball. Sander Berger has even looked really solid. And then you have Sorloth, who hasn't scored a goal yet, but he always looks like a threat in the box. But that's kind of what's actually helping Norway so much throughout this campaign. The Viking thing isn't just a gimmick by any means, because this team has shown out so many times now that they can dominate duels, both on the ground and especially in the air. I still think the defense is an issue though, but that's not really much of a surprise. We all knew that going into this tournament. I mean, Norwegian people are literally stressing about the fact that they're not making enough defensive talents. Like, this isn't a surprise to anyone. But if it's one positive I can at least give this defense, it's their goalkeeper that played a huge role against Ivory Coast. Even with the defensive issues that Norway has, Brazil just don't convince me, man. Like, I just think Norway's physical dominance as well is going to pose so many problems, especially if Casemiro starts. So, I'm sorry about this, Brazilians, but also see this as a blessing in disguise. Maybe this will finally wake up your federation to do something different. But I think Norway wins this one 3-2. So with the knockout rounds happening right now, the tension has multiplied tenfold, and the atmosphere is quite honestly insane. And I'm sure some of y'all have that type of game on your bucket list. And I say, go for it. Take the opportunity. And luckily for you, I got something that'll make this process even easier. SeatGeek, baby. SeatGeek has a system that shows each ticket rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know if you're getting a good deal or not. So whether you're deciding on going to see Mbappe versus the Professor, or how badly the US will beat Belgium, you can easily find the best seat at the best price. Now, me personally, I live in New York City, so I am eyeing the Norway-Brazil game like a hawk. That should be absolute cinema. I don't need to stress about not knowing what my view will be because SeatGeek shows me exactly where my seat is. So if you're in the US this summer for the World Cup, I have a special discount. Get 30% off any World Cup tickets when you spend $200. Just use code MACWELL30. It works for new and existing users. Hit the link in the description so the code gets auto-applied. Make sure you click the link in the description and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. That's $30 off any World Cup tickets after you spend $200 with promo code MACWELL30. Mexico versus England. This one's really tough too. Positives first though, I gotta follow the rule. England have a wonderful cushion in its midfield with Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, and Elliot Anderson. This trio has been crucial to making sure England doesn't have even more problems than it already has right now. And then of course you have Harry Kane, who has constantly been putting this country on his back. But it's funny though, because he's 32 years old and he looks even better now. I feel like Harry Kane in a tournament is usually pretty disappointing, mainly because he's always so static. But Thomas Tuchel has been doing a really good job of utilizing Harry Kane. We're seeing more movement, we're seeing Harry Kane find a lot more touches in the box than he usually does. And when you got finishing like Harith Edward Kane III, I mean, that's a gift in the modern game. But again, he is basically this team's savior. And this is against teams like Ghana, Panama, DR Congo. Not to disrespect these teams, they're really good, but if you're wanting to go farther in the tournament, this is not what you want. Because beyond Harry Kane, England's attack is fucking awful. This team could play no wingers, and I swear to you, I wouldn't even notice, because they've been that non-existent. And also what doesn't help is the fact they're not getting any support from the fullbacks, because the fullbacks are too busy being put on skates by every single player with just a smidge bit of pace or a smidge bit of technique. Now, Mexico, on the other hand, this is also kind of tough because I just feel like they really haven't played anyone that good. What I can at least say is that defense has been really good so far. They haven't conceded once, and, you know, you can't really blame them for the opponents they've faced, right? They can only face who's in front of them. But even then, I still think this defense can do really well against some of the best performing teams in this tournament. The two players that really stand out for me, Cesar Montes and Johan Vasquez, these are going to be important pieces in Mexico's defense. I still think the attack is a bit of a weakness, but I will say it looked promising against a defense like Ecuador's. Even though Ecuador had to focus in a lot more on their defense because they had no attack, still, what we saw from Mexico in that first half was super impressive. It was just killer instinct after killer instinct, no hesitation whatsoever. You had Julian Quinones just going right at a player like nothing. My camera just died. Raul Jimenez is always posing problems in the box, and that 17-year-old kid, Gilberto Mora, he can ball the fuck out. And considering England's fullbacks have been one of their biggest weaknesses, that's huge for Mexico. But I think on top of all of this, what works for Mexico is they're damn near unstoppable at home. Not just the fans, they've been creating some incredible atmosphere, but you also have to take into consideration the altitude. The prediction for this one, it's hard, because as much as I want to say Mexico can overcome this team, because I do have belief they very much can, something tells me Harry Kane's just gonna pull some shit out of his ass. I just have the feeling it's gonna happen. Mexico's going to go up 1-0, but England's gonna overcome and prevail 2-1. And that'll be the end of the Estadio Azteca. Portugal-Spain. This is a rematch of the 2010 last 16 matchup where Spain won 1-0 and then went on to win the whole thing. Spain had a bit of a slow start to this tournament, but against Austria, they looked a whole lot better, and I'd say they've put themselves amongst the favorites once again, because that game wasn't even close. It was just proper domination in every single regard. Now, right off the bat, Lamine Yamal is the game changer for the Spaniards. He's constantly a danger on the ball, but we can't forget about what he does off of it. His ability to draw defenders allows Spain to play a lot more freely, and it also unlocks some of their other attackers, like Mikel Oyarzabal, because this man went from having not a single touch in the first 60 minutes versus Cape Verde to now having 4 goals in his last 3 games. Deeper in this team, you have Rodri, who is just a commander in the midfield, also amazing defensive performances so far. This in turn also allows Pedri to do what he does best, and that is unlocking sequences going forward. And it seems like anytime Marc Cucurella plays for Spain, he's just different. Defense is about the only thing that I feel like is still in question, but that's mainly just because of the opponents they've faced so far. But goalkeeper Unai Simon has played really well, and that's going to be very important going into these next fixtures, especially against Portugal. We started with Spain's attack, and now I'm going to start on the opposite side for Portugal. their defense. Ruben Dias is crucial to this team's backline. Diogo Costa has been putting some really good shifts in between the sticks. Nuno Mendes gives both expertise in attack and defense. The defense has been exceptional, and I still argue it's one of the best ones in this whole tournament. But the problem is, the attack's been really sluggish, and because of that, the defense has way more to deal with than they really need to, especially with the talent going forward. João Neves and Vitinha, I feel like I just expected more, especially with how good they play with each other at PSG, but they've kind of just been disappointing to me. Now, Bruno Fernandes, on the other hand, he's been exceptional, but even the wingers I haven't really seen much. And I feel like it goes back to that conversation that we keep having, and it's been the case with Portugal for the last 8 years. Ronaldo holds back this team. Congrats on scoring your first knockout goal. It may have been a penalty, but still, it's a knockout goal, and that might trigger something. Who knows? But the problem is, it's 10 years too late. He's just not the same player anymore. His lack of mobility really hurts Portugal. It feels like when Portugal are starting to get something going, they just hit a wall every single time. But here's the thing, okay? I can't put this entirely on Ronaldo because Roberto Martinez manages this team. And I swear to God, this is one of the stupidest people on earth that has managed to secure this many premium jobs. Without a doubt, he is actively holding back this entire Portuguese side. Why on earth are Portugal playing so slow with this many explosive attacking players? Use them! I still think this will be a tight match just because of Portugal's defense, but I think just like 2010, not the score, but I think Spain prevail 2-1. Excuse the voice right now. After the first recording of this, I went to hang out with Zealand and Fiago. We did some karaoke. USA-Belgium, a rematch of the 2014 last 16 match where Belgium overcame the Secretary of Defense in extra time. For Belgium, it's gonna be really hard for me to be positive here. Okay, Belgium, you fucking fraud. Belgium is a team. Belgium are in the last 16 somehow. I'm just gonna start with my rant first. Belgium are the biggest frauds in this tournament, and it's not even close. They have been since the beginning of this World Cup too. They should have lost to Egypt. They were lucky fat asses were illegal in this tournament. And not to mention New Zealand. Like, are we really gonna praise them against New Zealand? I know it was a 5-1 result, but come on. And then Senegal. That was just a proper bottle job from the champions of Africa. Because pretty much throughout the majority of that game, Belgium looked defeated, frustrated. They didn't even look like they were in control of that game whatsoever. That was until the subs came on. And if this team is to convince the world they deserve a seat away from the table, not even at the table, just like at another table, they need to play Dodi Lukebakio and Diego Moreira, because these two pretty much revived the entire team. Within the last 15 minutes of that game, Belgium looked more threatening than they had throughout the first 75. Lukebakio in particular struck fear in me that I haven't really felt from any Belgian player since like 2021. And I guess to be fair, Belgium also still has Thibaut Courtois, but it really doesn't help that he has this like twig of a backline between him and the opposition. Now, onto the US. Kind of a similar situation as Mexico, but just a little bit better of a sample size here. Right off the bat, the attack has looked wonderful with Fuller and Balogun up top. The man's been automatic, he's been a danger off the ball as well. Too bad he's suspended this game. It's a huge hit because I honestly believe he's been our best player for the last 2 years. But that all said, you still have Maga Messi Christian Pulisic, who is still as explosive as ever, and he seems to have his confidence back. The US also has the ability to create good chances through midfielder Weston McKennie, Serginho Dest is another one, Anthony Robinson, and you can't forget about Malik Tillman as well. Holding down the fort is Tyler Adams, an absolute dog of a player. There's no other player that puts his life on the line more than this midfielder. He'll be crucial with the duels we'll be facing. Defense, on the other hand, I still feel like there are some issues that need to be addressed. It has been fine, but we're only going to face more dangerous attacks, and so far, I don't feel like we've really faced that much. But then again, Belgium's attack, not good either, so I wholeheartedly believe we will win this one. We will get our revenge 2-1. Egypt versus Argentina next. Argentina, I would have said, were one of the biggest favorites for this tournament. And then the Cape Verde match happened. Let's at least start with the positives though. Emi Martinez has been huge in between the stakes. Lisandro Martinez has been pretty solid in the back for the Argentines. But most importantly, you have Lionel Messi playing out of his skin right now. I mean, he's got the monkey off his back, he's got the World Cup, so he really has no worries anymore. And it's shown, because he has 7 goals already. But I'm gonna be so for real, I don't really think there's many standout players besides him right now. But the thing is, it was never like that in the first place. This team has always been a unit, just like 22, that's how they want it. But that match versus Cape Verde, I don't know, it brings up a lot of questions. This is not to take away from Cape Verde's performance, by the way. I still think they put up one of the best fights I've ever seen against a #1 side. But still, I think there are questions to be asked here. But what I will say is, just like 2022, they did struggle versus their first opponents in the knockouts. So maybe the knockouts for Argentina is going to be very similar, where they're just kind of surviving each game. For right now, I'm a little bit skeptical. That all said though, next opponent is Egypt. I think they'll probably be fine here. Now, Egypt have a huge task in front of them, but I wouldn't exactly count them out. They personally got their own monkey off their backs, which was an appearance in the knockout stages. And they also just recently won a knockout stage game, so there's a bit of a warm-up game there, right before Argentina. Egypt have a pretty well-oiled attack. Mo Salah, as you'd expect, is at the forefront of this. He's got a goal and 2 assists. Imam Ashur has also scored some important goals, one versus Belgium, and also one versus Australia recently. Egypt's defense could be a bit of a concern, though. They have conceded a goal in every single game they've played so far, but their keeper Mustafa Shobir has been super important to them. His last match versus the Aussies though just wasn't good enough, so he'll need to be at the top of his game, especially against a team like Argentina. It's hard to see Argentina losing this one. Egypt just don't really have the same grit as like a Cape Verde side, so I'm gonna go with the 2-0 to Argentina for this one. Lastly, we have Switzerland versus Colombia. Switzerland are another team finding the right form at the right time. Firstly, let's talk about the attack, because I feel like it's only become more and more fluid with the games. And a lot of that comes down to the ballers that they have up top. Yohan Monzambi, at just 20 years old, has 3 goals, 2 assists. Ruben Vargas, who I feel can be very hot and cold, is very hot right now with 2 goals and 1 assist. Dan Ndoye hasn't been amazing, but perhaps he can light a fire now that he scored a goal. And then you got Breel Embolo, 2 goals, 2 assists, FIFA 16 career mode legend, if you know, you know. He may have not reached that potential, but he's been super important to this Switzerland side. I especially love the way he's able to hold up play, because it opens up Switzerland's attack so much more. The Swiss also have a really solid midfield in Remo Freuler and Granit Xhaka. Granit Xhaka in particular is one of the most experienced midfielders even going into this tournament. In just general though, this whole team has a ton of experience, so that's going to help them a ton going into the knockouts. Now, I still think there could be some issues in the back. I mean, they conceded versus Qatar, and they also did concede a consolation to Canada, and they also did concede to Bosnia. You get the point. But nothing has really sounded the alarms for me so far. Colombia have potential to be dark horses, but I need to see a little bit more from them before I really can believe that. The defense, honestly, has been the most impressive to me, which is kind of surprising because I felt like it'd be actually the attack. The attack, though, has been a bit underwhelming, but we'll talk about it in a second. Colombia, though, have conceded just 1 goal throughout the entire tournament, and a lot of that comes down to the center-back pairing of Davinson Sanchez and John Lucumi. Right-back Daniel Munoz has probably been one of my favorite players to watch throughout this tournament so far, especially when Colombia are moving the ball up forward. He just adds another layer to their attack. When you talk about attack, though, you can't leave out Luis Diaz. He's got an aura to him that makes him feel like a threat, even when he just stands on the ball. Beyond that, though, I feel like he could be better. The same could be said about James Rodriguez, and I feel like the same can very much be said about a lot of their finishing. I feel like someone who's been really disappointing for me is Luis Suarez. Not the Uruguayan striker, the Colombian striker. I just feel like I expected a lot more, especially after his campaign in Europe and even his qualification campaign with Colombia. But it's not all doom and gloom, because another attacker has stepped up as of recent. He hasn't really scored that many goals, but John Arias. He did just score versus Ghana, so maybe that's the start of something special. I cannot stress to you that the majority of these games you don't want to miss, but this is especially a game I don't think you want to miss. Honestly, I think it's a super underrated matchup considering where both teams are in terms of form right now. For me, I think the Swiss are slightly better, so I'm going to go with a high-scoring 2-2. This goes to penalties, and Switzerland prevail. And that's the last 16. But what do you guys think? Who's going to win these matchups in the last 16? Let me know down in the comments. Of course, though, a massive shout out to all our members, including Janos Balas and my before Janos Balas, German Sayu 7th, Jeremiah Owusu Ajamong, Hypernova, Django, Anazir Makalankam, Alex Rod, Kentra Gacha, Saint Terrence, Sylvia Citrus, Cheesebaits, Winder Gel, Finn Likes Rugby More, Davox, The Portergeyser, Wise Orange, Bolo Protos, Von Fan, A Ghostly Owl, Coney Wolves, Lickstab, Matanai, Apollo, Thrilling ADT13, Los Milos, James Braun, Vecino, Napside, Money Cash Hose, Quintavious Pork, Lilia Lover, Stewed Monk, Red Yellow, Fuxi, MX San, Harry Maguire's Love Toenail, Flaquito, Thierry's Thoughts, Julian Alvarez, Glazer 7, Barca Blanco, Mark GB, Archangel 64, Chuck is Dead Vyak, Somir, Dizzy, Kev C, Dominic Griffin, Kyler Kress, Mohammed Altanib, Nish, Patrick Barley, Rashford Got 5, Raspberry Ale, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to become a member on the channel, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow me on Twitter if you want, follow me on Instagram if you like. There's also my Twitch. I'm sorry, I know I promised some watch alongs, but it's been so hot. And fun fact about my setup, my AC is quite literally right in front of me. And so I usually don't like having that on when I'm in front of my desk because that's how you get sick very easily. And the weather outside has quite literally been in the 100s as of late. So I can't survive that, okay? If it gets a little cooler, then we can talk, but I'm sorry, it's just too hot to do a watch along, considering I do not have the ability to have my AC on while this is going on. I'm gonna stop yapping though. Until I'll see you guys. Go watch the World Cup.